All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. America's longest war in its history will soon come to an end. The American President Joe Biden will begin withdrawing American troops from Afghanistan on the 1st of May. He's also rejected calls for the American forces to stay on to ensure a peaceful resolution to Afghanistan's grinding internal conflict between the Taliban, which seems to be again on the ascendant, and the government in Kabul, which is trying to fight for its space. In a White House speech, Biden acknowledged that the U.S. objectives in Afghanistan had become increasingly unclear over the past decade. He also set a deadline for withdrawing the all 2,500 American troops who remain on the ground in Afghanistan by the 11th of September. That is the final date that's in fact been put out. The date is a crucial one, as it also marks the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks on the Twin Towers in New York.
I've concluded that it's time to end America's longest war. It's time for American troops to come home. When I came to office, I inherited a diplomatic agreement duly negotiated between the government of the United States and the Taliban that all U.S. forces would be out of Afghanistan by May 1, 2021, just 3 months after my inauguration. That's what we inherited, that commitment. It's perhaps not what I would have negotiated myself, but it was an agreement made by the United States government, and that means something. So in keeping with that agreement and with our national interest, the United States will begin our final withdrawal, begin it on May 1 of this year.
Now, 2,448 American service members have lost their lives fighting the war. It came at a cost of an estimated $2 trillion. Now, Biden made the decision personal by invoking the memory of his late son who served in Iraq. The deadline of the 1st of May was set by former U.S. President Donald Trump, who tried but failed to pull the troops out before leaving office. Biden, on the other hand, is embracing risks at the beginning of his presidency that have proven to be too great for his predecessors. And one of the risks is that the Al-Qaeda potentially could reconstitute itself, or that the Taliban insurgency might topple the US-backed government in Kabul. The Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is amongst Biden's fiercest critics in this decision. Now, Lindsey Graham has argued that the withdrawal would actually backfire by prolonging the conflict and possibly even breathing new life into Al-Qaeda.
The result of this decision today by President Biden is to cancel an insurance policy that, in my view, would prevent another 9/11, because I believe with all my heart and soul, after 50-something trips to the region, that a few thousand Americans watching over there would make it hard for Al-Qaeda and ISIS to reorganize to hit us over here. Those eyes and ears will be gone.
Now, the withdrawal will be a coordinated one. Foreign troops under NATO's command will withdraw along with the United States, a crucial move for the alliance and also a sign of unity in the region. And America's top diplomats are making sure that this withdrawal will be a seamless one. While the NATO allies are in agreement, Russia believes the troop pullout risks a further escalation in the region. The foreign ministry even says that it undermines efforts to start the intra-Afghan negotiations. While the troop withdrawal is certain, the Taliban, of course, remains pretty defined. Under the so-called agreement, US troops have to leave the country by the 1st of May. And Biden's announcement means that the deadline will now be missed by a few months, and that detail has not been lost on the Taliban leaders. The group intends to skip any key peace talks before the troop withdrawal in Afghanistan. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of the decision that has in fact been made by the Americans, we're joined in by our correspondent Rachel Silverman, who's joining us live from San Francisco on this story. Thank you very much indeed, Rachel, for joining us on this broadcast and beyond. Now, this was something that was expected. Now, under Donald Trump, the deadline was the 1st of May, but under Joe Biden, the 9/11, 20 years since the Twin Tower attacks, that has been set as the deadline. Now, presidents before Biden have stated their intention to withdraw troops from America. Will Biden be the president who will get the troops back home?
Well, Biden has said more time and more troops have failed to end the conflict, and now it's time to close down this war, America's longest war. He certainly sounds determined to be the president, to withdraw all the American troops. 3 presidents before him. The president did not declare a military victory. He said instead that a perpetual presence does not serve U.S. interests. He said the U.S. has long since met its goal of responding to the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. And he noted as well that it's been nearly a decade since the U.S. commandos killed al-Qaeda's mastermind, Osama bin Laden. So after 20 years, after 4 presidents, thousands of deaths, and trillions of dollars spent, Joe Biden seems determined to bring the troops out of Afghanistan. But there are several questions that will be answered and maybe not answered between now and September 11th. One of them is whether he will actually be able to bring all the troops out.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, I also want you to weigh in on how the Republicans have, of course, reacted. Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator there, stating that this is going to be counterproductive for American interests. Donald Trump was a Republican president. He had given the 1st of May as the deadline to get all troops back home. And now here Republicans are not very happy that 9/11 is now going to be the date when the troops will be brought back home.
Well, some Republicans are not very happy. There are some Republicans who are in full support of this what Biden calls a more realistic deadline. For those who warn that a complete departure could lead to more terrorist activity, like Lindsey Graham, President Biden says the U.S. will continue to support the Afghanistan government through diplomatic and humanitarian work. And as part of the 2020 peace agreement with the United States, the Taliban has agreed to sever its ties with terrorist groups, including al-Qaeda. It also agreed to prevent them from operating inside Afghanistan. Now, there's no way for us to know whether or not the Taliban intends to honor that agreement, but intelligence officials have offered the Biden administration a pretty grim portrait of Afghanistan itself, predicting that the Taliban will make battlefield gains, that the Afghan government forces will struggle to hold territory, and they say a peace deal between them is unlikely. But U.S. counterintelligence and capabilities, experts say that counterintelligence officials will likely have the inside on any any terrorism activities that are going on inside Afghanistan once the troops leave.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Rachel Silverman, for joining us and getting us all those updates there.